зі Львова десь 2 місяці тому. І він відвідував наші Drupal Cafe, 2 останні, і зголосився бути доповідачем. І зараз він скаже, чому проекти зазнають невдачі. Ця доповідь буде англійською мовою, але думаю, це не складає проблем. Okay. So, Ivo,
thanks. Hi, everyone. Well, welcome here. Or, nice to meet you here. The other way around. Finally, we made it. So today, I want to say a few things about projects, why they fail, and in general about Drupal and enterprise organizations. And before I start, a few words about myself. I started with Drupal in 2007-8, something like that. And yeah, during the years I've organized several different events with Drupal, the Drupal Government Days in Brussels, Drupal Business Days in Vienna, the CXO DrupalCon Munich, and other different events. And that's why I think it's really interesting currently the involvement around the Drupal Dev Days, which we are currently discussing, as Sarah mentioned. And I'd be happy to support the proposal and make this event happen in Lviv, which will be a challenge for sure. There are a few reasons for that, but if everyone gets involved into helping the organization, it will be more possible. To start, in somewhere around 2005, I dropped out of a higher technical school, and basically it's not that I didn't like what we've been learning, or I don't like the concepts that we were learning in school, but I had this urge that I need to do something else, and so I became self-employed. Basically, I started my first business in 2006. It was an insurance platform which I built at this time with some basic HTML and some forms and very basic coding. Yeah, I mean, what I did is I took these complex forms that the insurance companies had, I put them online and started to gather more or less inquiries. At this time, I had no idea about how to code or how to put that website together. But by building this platform, at the same time I've acquired some knowledge which I thought would be good to use in an IT company and provide the same services for other companies. So more or less at the same time I started an insurance platform and IT agency. Pretty soon we started to code, and basically just plain PHP. We started to put together some snippets, put together some packages and libraries and so on and so on. And it started to grow and grow and grow, and at some point it became a beautiful homemade solution which was far from enterprise needs. And so in order to solve our problem with the spaghetti code, we started to look around for actually someone else should have the same problems that we did. So we've been looking for different solutions. And we found several ones. One of them was actually Drupal. We compared different criteria, different systems, type of tree, this time something like Joomla and WordPress and Drupal. And one of the main reasons why we decided for Drupal, and at this time this picture would have looked a bit different. I think the conferences were something around 60-70 people, that was the first DrupalCon, right? And there was like 60 people, and shortly after there was Segit, which was slightly bigger than the first DrupalCon. In any case, we could see that there is a development, there is something that is happening, and the community was more or less the main reason why we decided to go for Drupal. And of course the features and all the other things, but community was definitely the main reason. So a few years down the road, thanks to Drupal, I built a global network on my own, more or less, from all over the world. And basically without any formal education, I managed to make great connections and friends all over the world, and mostly thanks to Drupal. But in any case, it became in 2011 the largest insurance platform in Austria, which I happen to have signed my exit very recently. And yeah, overall, everything is great. So we had back in 2001 the first enterprise clients, and we had contacts and clients which were on an international base, a global organization. One of them was the largest multinational pharmaceutical corporation, and eventually Drupal 7 was launched, and we headed towards a bright future. But what we considered to be actually a big success with Drupal and all these great clients and everything was really great, turned out to be a bit more complicated than initially thought. Actually, everything became quite tricky because the bigger the projects became, the more we had to deal with different issues, policies, lack of education, performance issues, security issues, lack of Drupal support, which becomes better and better today, but during the last few years, these were issues we had to deal with. So, looking at some statistics, in fact, most projects actually don't meet their schedule. Most of them don't meet their budget and quality goals as well. And on average, 45% of all large, no, actually on average, all large IT projects go 45% over budget. That's from a study conducted by IBM. We're talking about projects that go like in enterprise scale. So some of the biggest barriers in enterprises are, and this fits actually quite well to the second session where there is about how they signed an SLA with large corporations. So some of the biggest barriers actually is the changing mindset in large corporations, and as well as the underestimation of complexity, which happens quite often, and lack of senior management support. Yeah, and the corporate culture, which is also quite an important factor when the IT infrastructure is changing. And usually it is changing when Drupal comes into play. It means something ugly goes away. But like SharePoint or whatever. But the point is that people got used to it, and there are many different people, and also IT departments defend their properties and their systems, so it might be really hard to convince them that everything new will be better. In fact, 17% of large IT projects go actually so badly that they threaten the very existence of the company itself. And I'm talking about enterprise companies and not small companies. And looking at some more statistics, 70% of the global 500 corporations vanished in the last 10 years. That's actually quite significant amount, and basically a big amount of these companies didn't manage to survive the wave of digital disruption. So this shows also how important it is to manage innovations and manage IT infrastructure. One of the main points that we gathered over the last few years is that we had to learn to reinvent ourselves in order to help our clients. And so the question is, what should we improve, or what are we working on constantly to improve in order to be able to work with enterprise clients? I've identified 4 key directions, 4 key areas in which companies, IT companies, and also Drupal companies struggle actually to perform. Another big issue that is also quite often that the client actually lacks a technical lead. They don't have a technical lead on their side who understands the solution. In that case, it's very important to manage all stakeholders that are involved in the project and have more frequent meetings. Best is to have weekly meetings with the client and discuss the progress. Also include the client in communication and their IT department and be as transparent as possible in order to avoid issues. An unclear decision-making process can be hell. Secure executive support as soon as possible. If you have executive support, you'll be able to establish a centralized leadership within your client's decision-making process. If you get from 5 different departments requirements or updates on current tasks, you will lose sight of your project. So, and you won't be able to manage risks. So it's really important to have one centralized decision-making leader on the client side. What do you do when the product owner is not involved enough or lacks the know-how, which also happens? In that case, it's even more important to have frequent reviews, to be as transparent as possible. If necessary, and if it's really tough, you better have daily meetings with the client. Short meetings, for example in Scrum we have daily stand-up meetings. Documentation is really important, as well as escalation. As soon as a problem arises, you have to make your client aware of that and hold them accountable. If the workflows and communication channels are not clear enough, it'd be important to use agile methodologies. Who of you is using real-time communication with his clients, like HipChat or Slack or any other communication system? Okay, so it is important to use real-time communication when it's necessary and to avoid as much as possible emails, because as you know, emails, they come and disappear somewhere in the inbox at some point if they're not managed properly. And also what clients sometimes like to do is to send you 5 different emails on the same topic over the course of a day or several days. So you might lose track as well what was discussed or what was given as a requirement. And also these systems like HipChat and Slack are integrated with your project management system and tools or your code repositories, which makes it also easier to handle projects. This graphic, simple graphic, is known to everyone. And still, many companies require from us that we define the project up front, possible for the next 2 years, and write down every detail that is required. It's really hard to put together waterfall requirements for large-scale projects, if not impossible. Because on one side you define the requirements, on the other side a few weeks later they will change, for sure. I haven't seen a project that was like 100% predefined and also executed the same way. It makes sense to change because you adapt to your needs and also the client to his needs. So it's better to define user stories and define all tasks in a backlog, run sprints, run stand-up meetings, and pair, for example, in the sprints, developers, front-end and back-end developer together, which is a quite common practice. Another reason why projects fail is onboarding. How many times did you spend hours and hours just to get acquainted with the client's infrastructure, just to install everything and set it up? In large projects where larger teams are also involved, onboarding is also really important. So it's important to provide standards and tools and to focus on removing distractions from developers. One of my favorite ones is actually unrealistic timelines. How many of you had a project with unrealistic timelines? Never. It didn't happen. Yes, I love it really much. One of the common issues is that actually the sales guys, they love to promise everything. Everything is possible, whatever the client asks. And I know it myself because I sold many projects. And I'm trying to be better, but I tend quite often to oversimplify. The client asks if this is possible, and of course it is possible. Yeah, we have this module, we have that module, and we've done this and we've done that. Everything is possible. But the point is that oversimplifying in the sales process will lead to unrealistic timelines because the client just heard, okay, there is a module for that, you install it, everything is fine. Or you've done that already, even better, you have it ready, so we just can launch it tomorrow. So it's really important to make clear in the sales process that what is available and what you've done, but not oversimplify. It's important to involve the stakeholders, educate the management, tell them how it works, and especially to make people accountable for change requests. Because change requests quite often are the reason why timelines cannot be held as well. But usually clients, of course, don't want to accept that they delay the project and they will push it over to you. So it's important to track change requests and communicate and hold the client accountable if change requests cause a delay in the overall timeline. And of course, don't wait until the end of a sprint, until the end of a month, until the end of the project to tell the client that a particular feature or requirement will delay the project. The best is to do it as soon as possible. One of the issues again is part of communication, feedback lag and slow reaction. The client doesn't respond or responds too slow. So agree upfront to have, as mentioned, weekly meetings with your client. Make your client accountable for delays of feedback. Agree on if a feedback is delayed, that this will delay the project itself. For example, more than 2 days, more than a week, or whatever. And this upfront, of course. Real-time communication like HipChat and Slack again help as well to reduce the feedback lag. If not possible, use Skype, whatever. But it's important to be able to make the client accountable and to have the communication going on a regular basis. One of my favorite is the inadequate gathering of requirements. It is very important, especially in the first phase of the project, before we started to develop, to listen very carefully to the client. And sometimes it's just us, we are talking what we can do, but we should let the clients talk and listen to what they have in mind, what they actually want. Because sometimes the client tells you he wants something, but he means something different because he doesn't know how to express these requirements. It'd be good to gather also feedback from different departments and different staff members. To go through analytics data, which the client is willing to provide, and to identify, with analytics, I mean general business analytics, not just the web analytics, and to identify key metrics, because if you delay a project but manage to improve the key metrics of the client and bring more business to the client, he won't be that, let's say, upset about it, that you didn't deliver some feature, but managed to improve his overall key metrics. And of course, define the requirements as much as possible together with the client. All right. I mentioned it before, that changing requirements can not only delay the project, but can result into a fail of the project. Because in general, it might go over budget, the ongoing discussion with the client, what is covered and what is not covered, what is a change request, what is not a change request, it's always the same. So it is important to have a wish list, to define a wish list with the client, which is with together defined priorities, which contains priorities, and again, to have a very transparent communication. Being flexible helps also, but it doesn't mean that we have to dance after the client's pipe always. So proper documentation will help you as well to keep track of changing requirements. Especially, I've had some clients, they changed specific things every week. Back and forth, and at some point the client even may ask you who put up this requirement. It was the client himself, but if you didn't keep track of it, it might be hard to convince him of that. So documentation of requirements is actually crucial. Otherwise, you won't be able to escalate delays, additional budget, and so on. Yeah, I mean, requirements, what is also important is to define readiness and completion. I'd recommend also to have a cross-team documentation, which means that is also together with your client. It's good to have a section in your documentation with lessons learned, which is quite important, and for us it turns out that some problems come up over and over. So talking about enterprise, most of you already have seen that enterprises adopt Drupal more and more, and I've been participating, for example, in the sales process of Pfizer, which is one large-scale Drupal project with several hundred of websites, and also other similar projects. So there is more and more that will come in that direction, and especially with the upcoming Drupal version. In the most recent Forrester wave, we see already Acquia, which is more or less, in my opinion, a synonym for Drupal. Not all Acquia services or systems are available as open source, but most of what Acquia can do, other companies can do as well. Maybe not with the same budget and not with the same developers, but a big part of the success to Acquia, or the biggest part, is because of Drupal, and they work mostly with Drupal. So this means that Drupal has risen to a global leader in its sphere, amongst others like Adobe, even stronger than Sitecore in terms of market presence, and as well as IBM and HP and so on and so on. This picture you've seen most likely as well, how many companies still manage their infrastructure or don't manage. I mean, this happens actually when they don't manage it, because they grow a big amount of systems based on different platforms, which at some point becomes a mess. So there is an approach that enterprises start to adopt more and more, and this is basically the site factory approach. A recent study by Forrester shows that the return on invest of implementing a site factory approach, by the way, site factory, is it term to someone? As Acquia has, for example, a product that is called Site Factory. But in general, Site Factory approach means the management and deployment of many sites from one system. And this approach basically, for the most enterprises that implemented it, paid back within 2.3 months, which is quite impressive actually. And amongst them is our large enterprises. You can build actually your own site factory. There are different approaches, like with A-Gear or customized with deployment tools that I mentioned. So there are different approaches, and it really depends what the client requires. But most of the clients I've worked with on a large scale level actually have many different sites, so they require knowledge in building site factories. A very important point for enterprises is SEO and personalization. Of course, the more conversion, the better, the more the company will earn. And plenty of SEO modules allow our platforms to be on top, or at least to be easier indexed by Google. One very important point for enterprises is as well integrations, and we see integrations in all directions, and there are more and more coming up, and especially with Drupal 8, which is RESTful from ground up and shall be used, can be used as more or less an interface gateway to all kinds of different systems, we will see more and more enterprise level stability and performance, as well as thanks to Symfony. So that's more or less a short wrap-up of Drupal in enterprises and some of the facts why projects fail. I'd be happy to discuss with you your experience with projects and see how we can improve the overall approach that Drupal has towards enterprise clients, and not just our codes, which becomes better and better. Thank you very much. That's it.